And welcome to another edition of Smart Office Network TV. My name is Mark Eibner, and we're here just before Memorial Day weekend. Please remember, Smart Office Network TV, we consider it the ultimate sales meeting for our members out there. And you can man live chat on the screen here just to the right of the online studio that we have right now. It's to the right. And our texting, if you have any questions, you can text into Kirby Smith at 720-217-5853. And once again, this is our weekly news tips, ongoing communications for all members of Metro Brokers that are part of the Smart Office Network. Smart Office Network is an acronym for Synergy Marketing, Administration, Real Estate, and Technology. And our guest today is going to be Jeffery Keiffer, not Keiffer, Jeffery Keiffer. He's an attorney. He's going to be discussing liens and encumbrances and other fun things that could perhaps increase our seller nets and, in fact, maybe make short sales happen when they shouldn't be happening at all. Our sponsors today, number one is IPTV Boys Media. IPTV Boys Media specializes in video-based SEO, search engine optimization, real estate blogs. We also do video production, video hosting, video syndication, and of course, we have direct tie-ins with television here. KCDO, the new Channel 3, up to in 1.3 million households. So if you have any special needs, similar to what we're doing today with this internet protocol broadcast, IPTV Boys also does those types of arrangements. Also, Meridian Title and Escrow. Meridian Title and Escrow, we specialize in supreme service and valuable dividends to our owners. And of course, our other sponsor is Metro Brokers. And Metro Brokers, 33 years later, is still the only one true 100% commission franchise. As most of our RE/MAX members say now, or former RE/MAX members, it's really a lot how RE/MAX used to be. In our 6 prestigious locations, we have our Highlands Ranch location at Broadway and C470, our Inverness Business Park location, Park Meadows, the Denver Northwest, which is Highlands and Lodi, Platt Park on Old Pearl Street, and of course the Stapleton Town Center office location. We're going to get right into sales stats today so we can get on with Jeffery and his information. Just covering everyone's bases, we want to know that our sales volume to date closed as of this morning. Residential homes, 20,015 units. Compared to last year right now, 15,516. That's a sales volume increase of 4,499 units. Days on market is actually decreased again to an average of 19 days less on market than last year right now. 83 days on the market compared to 102. Sales price closing of this morning, medium sales price $265,390. They say $14,547 increase over the $250,843 last year. Condo market also doing well. Sales volume closed as of this morning is 4,813 units. That's 1,104 more units than the 3,709 units closed last year right now. Also, days on market is down to 92 days. That's 14 days less than the 106 last year. And sales price up $3,800 to $169,933 as of this morning. That's up from the $166,092 that closed last year. Some other stats I wanted to run. We ran some broker metrics the other day. Just wanted everyone to know here's where we stand on transactions per broker. In the Metro Brokers organization, 7.57 transactions year to date on average for the average Metro Broker agent in our organization. That's significantly higher than the 6.92 that's now being closed by the typical or average RE/MAX agent. 6.55 for brokers over at Innovative Real Estate. 5.32 transactions for Coldwell Banker members. 4.01 for the Prudential agents. 3.71 for Your Castle Real Estate. And of course, 2.4 transactions per agent closed at Keller Williams. And that's slightly higher than the ERA Herman Group at 1.86 transactions. And of course, Home Real Estate bringing up the bottom at 1.74 units closed on an average 12-month period. So I just always like to remind people when we're having mastermind meetings and so forth that I don't know what type of mastermind meeting you can have in an organization where people are actually doing less than 2 or 3 deals per year. So keep that in mind in your choice of real estate companies. And remember that Metro Brokers, we are in fact carrying experienced professionals. Supply stats, just so we know, under 300 grand, less than 6-month inventory right now. 0 to 300 is less than 6-month inventory. The 300 to 500,000 price range coming in with 10 months inventory at this particular moment. 500 to 1,000 or 500,000 to 1 million, we actually have a 19-month inventory of properties. In the 1 to 2 million, coming up slightly higher here with 37 months inventory. And of course, the over 2 million inventory, we are coming in with roughly about a 75-month inventory or 6 years. So I guess key today, folks, is try to specialize in listings under 300 grand. So that's where we want to stay. In the under contracts, it's the same thing. On short sales, just was tracking that 0 to 300, 15% of the closed stats as of to date under contract are short sales. In the 3 to 500 price range, 7.5% are under or are short sale transactions in the 3 to 500. In the 500 to 1 million, 8.8% of the sales there are short sales. And of course, 1 million to 2 million, only 7.3%. And last of all, 2 million and above. Hard to believe that we do in fact at least have a percentage there. 4.3% of the sales in 2 million and above are short sales. So some good information there for everyone. Also, mortgage rates right now are in fact down again. I don't know how much further they can really go. It's actually scary because we always know that usually the easiest way to go is in fact up, but every week they keep going down. Last week right now, rates are coming in at 4.79. That's down from 4.8 on a 30-year fixed. Last month it was 5.03. In the 15-year arena, 4.19, slightly higher than the 4.1 or 4.17 right now, a little bit lower than the 4.19, and significantly lower than the 4.35 last month. And on 5/1 ARMs, up slightly there. Currently, last week right now is 3.89. We're at 3.96, and last month was 3.95. I mean, really, on a 5/1 ARM, it's sort of, that's the bottom of the food chain on rates. I don't know if you can really get lower than that. Looking at the 1-year ARMs, which is a little more difficult to get. Current rates today, 3.96. That's up from 3.84 and slightly lower than the 4.27 last month. Once again, rates are hanging in there. Transactions are closing. By all indications, and if you look at our closed stats to date on sides, we are projected right now to close close to 45,000 transactions in the Metro Denver area. If you double that on 2 sides to every deal, that's 90,000 commissions. So all we want to do is get what? Most agents probably are happy with 20 to 30 commissions. Should be able to be done out of 90,000. Service systems highlight, once again, success in 2010, it's your own damn fault. Okay, there's no reason why 90,000 closings and the things we're doing in our organization that you can't be successful. Our accountability program with Chuck Blakeman has been an incredible success. Our 14 members there have now made it through 7 weeks, 5 weeks to go. We'll have our first class of 2010 graduating. And I'll need to remind everyone that the 14 members, we have never had less than 1 member not absent at any one meeting. I think as far as brokers go and herding cats, that's almost unheard of that we have the members that are in fact attending on a weekly basis, and some of the improvements we've had out of our agents, incredible. Our graduating class will be at 1 Lincoln Park on the 29th floor. That's on June 30th, 2010. Educational meetings and meeting times, transaction management, June 6th. That's from 2 to 3 at Inverness. CTME contracts, June 11th, 2 to 3 p.m. at Inverness. Active CMA and active email alerts, June 13th from 2 to 3 at Inverness. Our Exchange Outlook training is June 18th from 2 to 3 o'clock at Inverness office. And remember, all these classes that are listing here from Inverness are taught physically at Inverness. We've got a big dual screen presentation arena set up there, but they're also available all online. So just contact Tina Clark for our go-to meeting online education. The Metro Brokers Online Customization, that class is June 20th from 2 to 3 at Inverness. Our hands-on social media training class this month is June 22nd. That's being held at DeVry University from 9 until 4. June 3rd, Toastmasters, 11:30 to 12:30 coming up this week. The DYI Fast Track class is June 2nd. That's from 1 to 3:30 at Inverness, up in the large conference room. And of course, our Broker Mastermind, June 1st from 10 to 11:30. And this week, that's being held at the Inverness location. Don't forget, once again, just want to bring up to people our hands-on social media program. That's that's actually Tuesday, not Friday, June 22nd at DeVry University, 9 to 4. The cost of that is $145. If you want more information on that, just go to www.handsonsociallive.com. Don't forget the Access U2 or Property by Phone riders are available for members. You can reserve yours and the custom numbers by going to propertybyphone.com/metrobrokers. And if any of you haven't tried this unique feature yet, it does generate leads. People do call the phone number, and they do. In fact, this is a great replacement for paper. You get up to 14 high-res photos and, of course, up to 2 videos per property that any person on any broadband phone can download and actually watch instead of you chasing out paper brochures. Give it a try. You can just call 1-866-799-9899, and when you get the prompt in English or Spanish, follow the directions and enter property code 15 for a sample of this new unique property by phone concept that Metro Brokers brought on board just last month for all of our members. And we are now going to break into our special guest today, Jeffery Keiffer. We're going to have some time. And Jeffery is an attorney, came to me as a referral. And I guess I'm kind of interested in what you have to say, Jeffery, and we're going to get right into your show. And welcome to our show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for sitting through my little spiel there.
Wonderful.
You know, we've got plenty of time to go over what you're talking about. Maybe you can give us a little background on yourself.
Sure. Actually, I'm from Ohio, back in the Midwest. I was born and raised there. Attended Cincinnati to start my schooling. I was an accountant by trade. Worked for a CPA firm. Decided to go back to law school and up towards Toledo, where I'm from.
Okay.
Graduated with
Toledo, that's pretty tough.
It's a tough little town.
Did you get beat up a lot when you were a kid?
You know, I was a wrestler, so I did okay.
Ah, God, don't mess with wrestlers, man. I learned that one early. Don't ever mess with those guys.
We're small, but we're wiry.
Yeah, yeah.
So I got through law school. I focused mostly in business and tax, CPA as well. Started working in a real estate development company. Did some tax, did some legal work for them. Chased a beautiful woman out here. She now is my wife and mother of 2 kids.
Great.
That was in '96. I was fighting the IRS. Originally did some more tax returns, business litigation. Since 2004, I've been on my own. Everything basically is business related. Real estate, business litigation, fighting the IRS. So if it involves a business person, I've probably seen it or done it.
So tell us how you moved into this little specialty here. I want you to explain to our viewers what it is that you do for our clients or for brokers.
Sure. Well, what I've done throughout my career, it seems I've gravitated towards the business people, and a lot of those are real estate related people.
Right.
I've represented real estate developers, mortgage brokers, real estate brokers. So I've been very familiar with that area, and I've litigated the issues. They've come up a lot. So I've just through the last 18 years, I can't believe I've been an attorney for 18 years, but I've seen a lot of the real estate issues. And another friend of mine who's on a title company said, hey, there's a problem that I see. Is there a way we can solve it? And he explained that as a title person, he couldn't close every one of his files because all these encumbrances or liens makes the property non-closable. And he explained to me that title companies can't take risk because they get maybe $1,000 or so per file. So they're very conservative. We all know that. So when they don't close it, they don't close it because they can't have the risk. But legally, I think there are ways to eliminate some of those liens and encumbrances that can make those files close, which means you guys get your commission, homeowner gets paid, everybody's happy.
Yeah, so you're saying some of these liens, I don't see how you can fight a lien that's filed on a property. So
well,
maybe
That happens a lot. You know, I would talk to some brokers and some title companies and say, well, geez, here's your O&E. All of a sudden you have to pay all of this money to close a property. What do you guys do? And they're like, oh, geez, we tried, you know, maybe we pay it off, or we tried to negotiate, or swap some real estate for some other security. But the fact is, there are a whole host of laws that govern whether or not an encumbrance or a lien is proper. If it's not proper, you don't have to pay it.
So you're talking about what we've got up on the screen here. We've got mortgages, first and second.
Yep.
Mechanics.
Mechanics liens, HOA liens.
Love those.
Oh, there's millions of them.
Is there some way we can not pay those people?
Sometimes there is actually. There is.
Wow.
Judgments are very common. And there's a thing called a list pendants, which you may not have heard about. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
The first thing we talked about, what do you do when the title company says, here's your Schedule B, you can pay them off, not pay them off, negotiate. But I think we can remove them. From a legal perspective, a lot of them are invalid. Now, the title company won't tell you that. They won't insure that because it's too risky. But from a legal standpoint, I can come in, get them removed legally. They won't need to be paid. So the first one we usually see is your first mortgage.
Right.
Every first mortgage is going to be paid unless it's a short sale. Those are drafted by, you know, very high-tech lawyers. I call them the big box lenders. They have every protection known to man. Now, a lot of homeowners have second mortgages, third mortgages. Not every one of those mortgages has the same sort of protections that the first mortgage does. And so, depending on the circumstances, that second mortgage may not need to be paid at closing. Now, the first thing I always talk about is this thing called a homestead exemption. Every state in the country has a homestead exemption, which means when you sell a house, creditors can't take all your money.
Right.
Now, some exemptions are as low as $500. Some are unlimited. Florida, Texas, unlimited. If it's your homestead and you sell, you get to keep all that money. In Colorado, it's normally $60,000.
Right.
It can be $90,000 if you're over 60 years old or if you're disabled. So of that $60,000, you get to keep it. It does not go to judgment creditors, second deed of trust holders, those people.
Aren't most people signing waivers, though?
In the first mortgage, there is a waiver, absolutely. In the first mortgage, in the big box lender, there's a waiver of your homestead. For the second mortgage, it depends who drafted it. I've got a case right now where there's a second mortgage on my client's property. They did not waive the homestead exemption. They were foreclosed on, and there's an overbid of $25,000. Second mortgage holder thinks they get that money. It's going to go to my client. I filed a case up in Larimer County. We're going to go to have a hearing in a few weeks. I would think the judge will agree with me. And my client, who thought they would get nothing, is now going to get $25,000.
So now what's going to happen with that second mortgage then? I mean, it is what it is?
It is what it is. Now, the thing is, for a second mortgage, it acts as security for a promissory note.
Right.
Usually you sign a note. Well, in my client up north, he unfortunately went bankrupt. So he has no more personal liability. The only security for that second mortgage holder is his note.
Right.
Well, when it was foreclosed and there's the overbid, my client gets that money. Now that debt's gone completely.
Interesting.
Now, when you don't have a bankruptcy,
right.
All right, let's make sure we talk about that, because you may have a second mortgage. You signed promising you would pay it back. At the end of the day, you would still get, in my example, my client would get his $25,000. Let's say he didn't file bankruptcy.
Right.
He still owes that money.
Yes.
Right. But the second mortgage holder can't take that $25,000. It's his homestead exemption. If my client takes that money, buys a new house, it stays there. If my client puts that into a bank account and leaves it alone for a year and uses that money for other purposes, still his. They can't come after that money. So my client will use that money however he or she sees fit. And if it's gone after the end of a year, yeah, it's gone.
Interesting. Do they count other things into your homestead exemption as far as like cars, diamonds, stocks? Those are all a cumulative amount of money?
There are different things in bankruptcy law, and I'm not an expert on bankruptcy law, but you have certain things in bankruptcy law where you get certain exemptions, like for household goods, for example. That's a federal statute. Under Colorado law, the homestead is just for your primary residence, where you and your family live. So if you and your family live there, you have the exemption. That's a very powerful tool for a lot of these other liens that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about
Okay.
mechanics liens.
You know what mechanics lien is?
Yeah.
Somebody comes in, redoes your basement, you get an argument, you don't pay him or her, they file a lien. Now, a mechanics lien is very strict, meaning that there are certain requirements you must meet. You have to cross the I's, dot the T's, and if you don't do it, it's invalid. One of my first lawsuits over mechanics liens, there were 3 different lawyers who had filed 5 different mechanics liens, and 2 of the lawyers made mistakes, and those liens got thrown out. So it's very difficult to do a lien right if you don't do it often.
Right.
There's also time limits that you must follow. So if you don't cross the I's and dot the T's, if you don't bring the action and follow the time requirements, those liens are invalid. Now the title company won't take that risk, but legally they are.
Interesting. Doesn't mean you probably don't owe the contractor the money.
Same thing. You may not
Right.
owe it. You'll him or her the money. Well, a lien is different because you're allowed to place a lien even though you say there's been no determination if you owe the money or not.
Right.
For
Okay.
mechanics lien, if you think you really are owed the money, the contractor has to sue you within a certain period of time. And so if they do, fine, you'll go to court and you'll figure out what the right amount is. But if you don't, just because they say you owe them $10,000, doesn't mean you owe them $10,000. You're entitled to your day in court for mechanics lien.
Right. Okay. How about these guys? HOA liens.
HOAs, we all have them.
Right.
Under the statutes, Colorado statutes, HOA liens have a super priority, which
super
means
lien.
super lien. The first 6 months of HOA dues have to be paid. Just 6 months though. After 6 months, they're just a regular old creditor. So if you have somebody who's been in a house a long time, hasn't paid their HOA dues, yes, you have to pay 6 months worth, but you may pay 6
I'm
months and
seeing them
after.
file all the months owed, plus attorney's fees, plus usury rates on interest, and I see them getting that money all the time.
Of course they do, because no one steps up and objects. Because you have to assert your rights. The title company is going to pay it. Unless you tell them, wait a minute, they're only owed 6 months worth. It's not the title company's responsibility to say what's legally payable. All the title company sees is that there's something on their schedule that says this has to be cleared.
Yeah, it's like 10 grand. I've seen them 10 grand.
Absolutely. So what you have to do, you have to go to the judge. Like I'm going up there up north, Judge, my client has a homestead. I want an order from you saying my client gets the money, not the second mortgage holder. For a mechanics lien, I've gotten those thrown out of court. Judge, please tell everyone this is not a proper mechanics lien. Once the title company sees that, now they're comfortable. They see an order from the court, now they can remove it from their Schedule B, and then it won't need to be paid.
Interesting. So you just really provide that documentation to the title company?
If sometimes they'll work with you, sometimes if one of the requirements is the contractor has to bring a lawsuit within 6 months.
Right.
A lot of times the title companies will say, you know what, I'm going to leave it on title for a year. And after a year goes by, if there's no lawsuit, they'll drop it off and you won't have to pay it. If you get 6, 8, 10 months out and you have a good title company, a good rapport, they'll probably let it go for you. But as far as if it's valid or not, they won't make that determination.
Any stories with HOAs and their liens? Have you had success there?
Not yet. They're tough.
Yeah?
They are tough. Sometimes they'll actually sue you and get a judgment. So it's tough. The 6 months can be, hopefully, they're not that far behind. But if they're if they're more than
I guarantee you.
well, that gets into our short sales, which is another topic. But
Yeah, right.
after 6 months, they're just a creditor, so those can be removed.
Huh, okay. So other liens, you got
Other
attorney's
liens.
liens?
Yep. You don't pay
Medicare
me.
liens? Never heard of Medicare liens.
I've got a client trying to buy a piece of property.
Right.
And the seller is an elderly lady who went into the hospital, hasn't come out of the hospital, is in a nursing home. And under state law, since she wasn't able to pay for medical services, they were provided for her.
Right.
The state allows the state to file a lien against her real estate. It's a Medicare lien. So we're going back and forth what's valid. That has to be paid at closing. The state thinks it should be more. We think it should be less. So there's arguments about it. Tax liens, those are exempt from everything. There's very few requirements for a tax lien. You have to pay them. If those come up, you're not going to get around those.
Right,
Those are tough.
Like state, county, and even federal, right?
Property tax, IRS tax. IRS files their liens often. I just got a client filed one the other day. those unfortunately, getting out of those is very difficult.
But you're saying they are subject to the homestead?
Some of them are. The attorney's liens certainly are. Tax liens aren't. So it kind of depends on which it is. There's an ordering process of what's most important. The taxes always need to be paid, and so then the homestead comes in there below, ahead of the attorney's liens. So there's lots of statutory liens. It's where at does your lien fall in the order here?
Right.
So,
how about judgments?
Judgments. You know, client loses. They hire a lawyer and they lose their lawsuit, unfortunately.
Okay.
A judgment is valid for, I believe it's 5 or 6 years. After that, it's still valid against the person, but they can't collect from the property. So if you lost a judgment in the year 2000, you may still owe the money,
right?
But they can't attach it to your property. So if you're trying to sell and a judgment comes up, hey, title company, that's not a valid, it's a valid judgment, it's not a valid encumbrance on the property.
A lot of judgments.
There are, I've looked in Douglas County, Arapahoe County, and Jefferson County, just in the last 5 years, there's 20,000 judgments. I mean, and all of those people may not own real estate, but all of those judgments are subject to the homestead exemption.
Yeah, so they are subject to it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you've got a client who has a $20,000 judgment trying to sell their house. Title company is going to say, you know what, you got to pay that off. You don't have to, but the title company's not going to do it for you.
Right.
You have to assert that right.
Let's talk about lis pendens.
A lis pendens is an odd little term. What happens in a lis pendens is that if you have a lawsuit involves property over the rights, title, or interest in property, the person can file with the county records a lis pendens. That tells everybody that there's a lawsuit over this property. If that happens, you won't sell. Title companies will not close that property with a lis pendens on it. Now, sometimes people file lis pendences and they're invalid.
You have to have a lawsuit.
You do, and I
just can't. We used to file these against public officials,
and that's
and
what
we still should.
Well, you have to be careful because they.
No, I know.
There is a statute and a rule of law that says it's Rule 105.1. I've used it a lot. It's called a spurious document. If you file a spurious document in the public record, I can go to court within 10 days, get a hearing from the judge that says that is spurious, meaning it's groundless or vexatious. So if you don't like your congressman and file a lien against him or her, they'll go to court and get it thrown out. I just had one thrown out earlier this year. Client had lost a case. The person he lost to filed a lis pendens against some property that my client didn't own. We went to court. Your Honor, this isn't my client's property. Judge agreed with me, threw out the lis pendens. And actually, in that case, they had to pay my attorney's fees.
Yeah, that's what I've heard is the laws are pretty strict on that, on
correct
the frivolous lis pendences.
So that's what a lis pendens is, but if it's valid, you won't close until the lawsuit's over.
Interesting.
So
just some brief, maybe we're cutting it, we need to cut it short here,
sure.
But just some brief stuff here on the clearing process.
So when you see it, the first thing you need to do when you get a listing is actually get your O&E, because it takes some time to clear this up. To declare a lis pendens spurious takes a couple weeks. Declare a mechanics lien bad, same sort of thing. It takes a couple weeks. So if the brokers look at the O&E first, get a hold of their attorney if need be, it's going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks to get in front of a judge to say, yes, that's invalid, that's invalid, that's invalid. So as long as you have enough lead time, so build into your contracts enough, title work time, that if need be, we can get in front of the court, get those liens thrown out, get your client some more money.
Interesting. So is this the best way for any of our people to get a hold of you then?
That's me.
Why don't you tell us real quick on how you work on payment? Do you can you review every file someone has? Do you work on a contingency? How does that go?
Usually I work for the homeowner. They're the ones who are selling their property, so they're normally my clients. And for them, in these cases, they think they're not getting anything. So I say, well, geez, I'm going to get you some more money. We'll just split it. And so I dealt with them that way. Some short sales come up where they're not getting any money. I'll work with the brokers and help clear up the title that way.
Because the brokers actually might get paid then.
Exactly. Otherwise you won't. And so if there's things that which you think is a short sale, if these liens get thrown out, it's not a short sale anymore. It's just a regular closing.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Well, it sounds great.
Mark,
Great having you on the show.
my
Some
pleasure.
interesting data.
My pleasure.
And for all you out there, we've got Jeffrey's number up here. It's 303-996-4370. Or his email's up there, Jeff at KeifferLLC.com. So that's Jeffery Keiffer, and appreciate having him on the show today. And we appreciate everyone stopping in once again for Smart Office Network TV. My name is Mark Eibner. We are here every Friday at 11:30 to noon, trying to keep our brokers updated, posted on the best and most successful information out there. So much success to everyone this week, and we'll see you next Friday.